Hello, and welcome to Digital Decode with Qhala. My name is Laura Walubengo, and I'm your host for this podcast, where we'll be diving into anything that has to do with technology in Africa. And the aim of this podcast is for us to be able to decode anything that's happening digitally on the continent. As you know, the future of this continent is steeped in technology, and so you better be listening. What we're trying to do here is make sure that you're enlightened and inspired. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Digital Decode with Qhala. This is going to be your monthly guide that will lead you through the maze of technology that's actually shaping Africa's digital transformation. So my first guest today, her name is Anne Salim. Hello, Anne. How are you?
Hi, nice to meet you again.
So please introduce yourself to the audience and tell us what you do.
Hi, my name is Anne Salim. I'm currently working as a product manager and also in the innovation team of Qhala. And what that entails is working on products that build end-to-end software projects, but at the same time also working with different innovation teams supporting startups and corporates.
So when you talk about innovation, what exactly do you mean?
Well, it depends on the perspective you look at it. I like to think of it as just improving the ways you do something, either on a product, on a service, or on a platform. Any kind of tweak you make to it to make it better or to improve maybe a pre-existing process, I would think of it as an innovation. Majority of the time, sorry.
No. So if you're in charge of innovation or you lead innovation in an organization, that means that from the time you clock into work to the time you're leaving, you're just experimenting.
Nah, I mean, there's the regular admin stuff as well. But what it means is thinking about projects that we can implement to support ecosystems. That's people and the methods and the steps that we'll use to get to the end goal. Designing that whole process from end to end. Yeah, that's some of the work. But then at the same time, it also involves a lot of research to look at what are the problems in the ecosystem, the specific target holders we're looking at. Majority of the time, we're working with either startups or corporates. So looking at the landscape and seeing what are the issues they're facing, how have they tried to solve them before, and identifying the gaps. And then those gaps are what we refine. And I guess that's the innovation process for us.
So, I mean, research and innovation are sort of bedfellows.
Yes.
Which one would you say is more important?
It's like a chicken and the egg. Eh? Well, they're all the same, I think. Innovation is the process, right? And the outcome that comes out of you changing something from its pre-existing state into a new state. But to get there, you need to do a lot of background checking of research. So I would say they both are same weight. It's just some people prioritize the outcome, which is the innovation itself, and others prioritize the process, which is the research steps. Yeah.
I'll take you to an actual example.
Okay.
One of the things that I believe you worked on recently is the Betalab for Britam.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, it was a great project. It was so many years later in the making. A lot of times we were trying to figure out how we can work with the insurance companies to help them use more technology in their workflows. But at the same time, we were also meeting a lot of startups who wanted to build products for the insurance industry, which is heavily regulated. And the biggest barrier for them was the entry of the regulation. So when Betalab was coming around, it was how can we create an environment where the insurance company can innovate more and include more technology in their process flows? But at the same time, how can we enable startups, which are in previous terms limited in getting into the insurance industry, tap into the insurance space through providing innovative products. So with Betalab, it was a lot of consultations and discussions through our CEO Shiko and the Britam team to identify what kind of process can we set up to support innovation in a more consistent and sustainable way, but at the same time that enables us who are very risk averse experiment a lot. And what can we come up with, and would it be profitable for the business? So the whole process of setting up Betalab was just exploring what that process would look like. So what some of the things we had to do were conceptualize what are the inflows for how will we adopt innovations into the lab, what does the lab mean? What does the lab do? How will the lab work? How will the lab be an entity in itself or as part of the major Britam? What are the processes of the lab that would be slightly different from the main company itself? Because the main company had a lot of processes and bureaucracies. Designing also, what kind of areas are we interested in? So especially, with insurance being heavily regulated, we needed to think about how to create a safe sandbox. And so a sandbox would mean providing like matrices, environments for testing, and using also data that's almost real, to be able to simulate models, especially data models for cases where the products required heavy data, to make the product as accurate as possible. So, for example, if we're looking at an insurance product, maybe for motor vehicles, what kind of data do the startup need that the insurance already has? How do we remove all the personally identifiable data from the data the insurance company have, so that then the startup can play with the models with anonymized data? So thinking about such processes, and then thinking about the limit, how much data is enough? If it comes to exposing you to a subset of customers, what is the smallest limit you can give you that is credible enough for you as a startup to be able to test your hypothesis or model? What's the process of also accepting ideas from startups in a safe way? That means that your idea is not exposed, but the insurance company is not exposed as well. Thinking about all those kind of steps. Yeah.
So there's quite a bit of vocabulary you've used there.
Yeah.
One, what is an innovation lab?
Yes.
What is that?
So an innovation lab, like a test space, I would say, a test space to test ideas and to support them to the minimum viable product. And so some people will already come with an product, but then you need to tweak it to see if it'll work for a specific process, or if it'll be solving a specific problem statement, or if it can actually go to market direct. So that whole test bed that you create, either physical or virtual, and to support the entrepreneurs and the company that is supporting that lab, that's what we were calling the innovation lab, and that was the Betalab for us.
So if you think about when it comes to tech or anything digital, we have all these matrix-like figures swirling about in our head. So a test lab,
Yes. Yeah.
would have, I don't know, a chemistry lab would have a microscope, maybe
Yes.
those kind of things.
Yeah.
What are the components of an innovation lab?
Well, you need innovators for sure, and then you need problems to solve for, and then you need environments. So environments was different things to different startups. So, for example, for one startup, environments was access to real customers, a subset of customers to pilot the idea. For another startup, environment was access to data on previous records of how policies had been managed. For some others, they don't know the process at all. They just have an idea of, I want to create a product that helps people save for future medical problems. So they have an idea. So for us, the component there would be, you have an idea, we need to get you from idea to product. What are the steps we need to follow? Maybe we make you fill in the business model canvas to get your ideas from your head into a paper or computer. And then once you fill in the model canvas, we help you identify the patterns and the trends and the things you need. And then those resources is what we try to provide within reason. And then we create a test framework of how you're going to, and processes of how you're going to build each of the phases. And then we have a demo day where you showcase what you've built over the incubation period, quote unquote, which is another thing. So you need time, you need innovators, you need problem sets that they're working on, and then you need resources in form of data or training or access to mentors in that sense. And then you need to showcase, yeah.
So what's the relevance of having it in a specific room rather than I mean, we can just be this can be an innovation lab. Why is it important to have a physical thing?
So this is controversial to me. I think you can run innovation whether physically or virtually.
Yeah.
I think so long as people are able to commit the time, which is the most important resource, that makes the bigger difference. But there's a difference with having people physically in a room that spurs more innovation. So in the past, from my previous experience with other incubation hubs, is I could be sitting and I could be struggling with a problem right now. And then somebody next there, just by quickly chatting with them, they could give me a perspective that maybe I didn't have before, which I can quickly innovate. So that it helps with turnaround time. It also helps with just things get done faster when you're together as opposed to when you're doing it virtually. Yeah, but I mean, it's a controversial opinion. I think you can get innovation done whether physically or virtually. But having a physical space was also important to the company at that time.
Yeah, I think to be maybe for it to be tangible, to say this is what is happening. Is like where? Okay, here.
Yeah, to showcase. Yeah.
There's another vocabulary that you used. Data model. What is a data model?
Wow. Quick disclaimer: I'm not the best data person, but in this sense, it's when you see for example, when you do focus group interviews, when you're trying to understand a problem, you reach a level where you see a level of saturation where the answers start becoming the same. So, for example, in a small innovation setting, you could test with 7 to 10 users and you'd reach your point of saturation really quickly where the answers start sounding the same. So when you're looking at data models is you have many inflows of data of different kinds. Let me think of any insurance problem. Maybe third party vehicle insurance, right? Maybe the pattern is there's specific months when there's more accidents and there's specific types of accidents, or maybe there's specific locations, or maybe you notice a trend of every year we are replacing 50,000 windscreens. Those trends that you see repeated in the data based on reviewing thousands of records help you identify is it outliers, anomalies? So a model is you put forward a question of what is a common trend of all the third party insurance claims we've processed last year, and then it'll run through thousands of data sets, and then it'll show you, in all of those ones we replaced the windshield, in all of those we maybe we didn't pay the claim or something, or maybe they all went to the same garage, or a lot of trends. And then those trends will help you see, okay, this is things that are coming up. What can I use this information for? So when you talk about data modeling, is you're putting a set of questions to your data so that you're trying to answer from that perspective.
So deep. Yeah. So why would companies need an innovation lab in the first place?
Companies are solving a lot of problems and they have a lot of internal issues as well. And so when you think about innovation, it's really at the end of the day, they have the bottom line to think of. They want to either meet their margins or attract new customer growth, or improve on how they are viewed or perceived from a brand perspective. And to do that, even if they look at their existing processes, they'll find challenges or problem spots that need to be fixed or improved on. And if that's a big enough problem for them, then they need an innovation lab to just create that culture of experimenting to solve for those problems and the new ones that they haven't even thought of for future proofing as well.
So basically, I mean, these are issues that the companies would have had whether they had an innovation lab or not.
Yes.
But the lab is more for creating a culture of experimentation and to see.
Yes, but specifically with the lab, the insurance company had given us goals. They had told us that we have this strategy that's coming up and these are the milestones that we want to hit. And so as we design the lab, we have to factor in some of these goals as activities that the lab will help the company achieve. So then we had to always make sure that the lab structure had an internal facing component to support the existing employees, and then an external facing component where we attracted innovations into the company so that at any one time it's balanced. Yeah.
So to me, this sounds like a very forward-thinking organization.
Very forward-thinking.
Very forward-thinking. Yes. But I mean, at what point do we lag behind? Why are there not that many companies taking up that sort of culture?
It's very expensive to set up in form of time and in form of change of mind and culture. I think a lot of the traditional organizations are embedded in their processes, and a lot of their processes work because that's why they are successful and profitable. So it really takes someone who wants to be an outlier in the game, who wants to take 10 steps forward. I was encouraged by our CEO who attended majority of those meetings where the setup was being conceptualized. She kept saying that we need to show them examples of what success would look like and what future proofing looks like in this space. And when we show them the examples, then they'll be willing to embrace it and take it on as a challenge that they want to solve. So a lot of the onus also was on trying to showcase, because not many companies locally had those kind of models that we could showcase. And here you are telling a company to set aside a chunk of their profits to work on this experiment, which you have no guarantees it'll work or not, but you're sure that the process will help them identify 10x more. So it was also a leap of faith, I would say.
So I mean, these are processes that we're talking about, but the demonstration that you've just indicated
Yeah.
with the CEO,
Yeah.
how do you show that?
Yeah.
What are some of the examples that you would say, okay,
Yeah.
these guys set up a lab,
Yeah.
and after X number of years,
Yeah.
this is what came up?
If you're lucky, and we got lucky quite a bit, the insurance space was budding when we started the conversation a few years ago with the company. And so there were some examples of insurtech startups, quote unquote, that we could present to them. And so we would show them, hey, look at this person. They just started 2 years ago and they're catching up with you. And they're going to take up this whole business unit of yours in a few short years with the right support. So even showcasing the existing examples and the profitability models was helpful at that point as well. Yeah.
So what would you say to sort of encourage other like-minded businesses to probably use the services of Qhala to either change the culture of the organization as a whole, or even just the entire industry on how we tackle problems?
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
We handhold you. We like to think of ourselves as a midwife, especially in the innovation department. We handhold you towards your next success. So we want to sit in. We want to learn about the challenges you're facing in your company. We want to identify unique areas where we can provide points of intervention, and then we work together with your teams to develop the structures that you need. So from the past, a lot of these things started from just giving you ideas on what digital transformation looks like in your company, because that was a nice entry point with many companies, running design sprint workshops and design thinking sessions with the companies to identify areas where they could leapfrog their current state. And then we also come embedded with a tech team. So we have developers, designers, user experience researchers who we embed in the teams to help with creating the new process flows and journey maps from idea to what the minimum viable product would be. And should you need our services for the tech too, we also build the platforms. So we come in as a one-stop shop, I would say. And we have, of course, a very robust research department that's looking at all sorts of cutting-edge research to help provide information on what are the gaps in the innovation ecosystem. So yeah, that's why we would pitch as Qhala.
But I'm sure for business leaders, the end question is always like, show me the money.
Show me the money.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how long did it take you to set up Betalab? And
I would look at it as a phased approach. If we look at length, it was many years, and half of the time or 3/4 of the time was just boardroom discussions of getting the idea approved. But once the idea was approved early January last year, then we set off on just working with the innovators. And early this year, we launched and showcased a few innovators who have been able to go through the process with the company and the Betalab as well. And it's looking good. I got lucky as well because there was another project we were working on with Britam. It was the iHelix at that time. And we were able to showcase them success within 6 months. And it was real money in form of actual money because we worked with them to build a quick innovation product around ensuring moments, and we're able to walk through the innovation steps from identifying the problem to bringing innovators in the room to narrowing down on a solution, and then working with the partners, and then actually using our tech team to build a simple dashboard where they could view the results end to end. And also that I think helped us along the way as well, because then they were seeing real money in real time after the launch. So yeah.
But I guess that solves the problem of data where a lot of companies pick data, but they don't know what to do with it, and they don't know how to play around with it for their benefit. So that's one area where you come in as well. As
Yes,
Qhala.
yes. We try and identify opportunities for you to utilize your existing data or even new data. We couple it together in the market. I think I'm encouraged by what we did during COVID is we were looking at modeling data of movement data of people. And this was just based on publicly available data on movement from different public sources. Can't remember the specific ones. And then we showcased a model of what identifying how people are moving would help with the COVID situation. And I think Shiko says they presented to the ministry, and then the ministry gave them more data to improve the models. And then they were able to support the ministry with identifying potential areas for the lockdown during that COVID time and other things. And since then...
So we were being locked down, but you guys were the ones actually
no, I wouldn't say
providing
like
the intelligence.
I would just say we were showing them the models of how fast the COVID would spread, and they inferred that data in identifying, okay, if this is how someone from telecom would move, is it Kencom? Sorry, Kencom in town would move. What is the farthest boundary they'd reach? Then it kind of helped, but to be honest, we needed to at that time stop the spread of COVID as fast as possible. And so just by showing them suggestions of data models, and then now when they gave us the actual data, and then we were able to refine those models. I think that was an interesting use case. Fast forward to now, we're working with a couple of counties, helping them identify different ways they can use their data for the health sector. And that's interesting too.
Yeah, because I can imagine with global warming that we should be prepared for quite a few interesting epidemics that should be coming through.
Actually, I don't know if we're doing anything with climate change. It's a good innovation idea.
We'll
credit it to you, of course.
I do know about another project you did called, is it
iHelix?
iHelix. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. So a few years ago, again, 2021, our facilitator, Sheena from the UK Kenya Tech Hub then, was hosting a roundtable with some CEOs in Kenya. And one of the questions that came up was, why are you not collaborating more with Kenyan startups? And they raised amongst a number of issues. One was trust, that every time if you meet with a startup and you discuss an idea, they'll think you've stolen the idea. So we said, okay, if we ever dealt with the issue of trust, would you be willing to collaborate with startups? And then they said, let's see. So quickly, Sheena and Dr. Shiko, they had an idea, and then we created a proposal, and we got some little funding of it to run the pilot. And we invited a couple of corporates to participate in that cycle. And the goal was, we want to do corporate startup linkages. Corporates will give us the problems, the bias to the corporate. We'll refine the problem statement, and then we'll find startups that match, and then we'll introduce them to each other and try and play that midwife role. So that first year, we invited several corporates to, of course, the launch breakfast, and then about 5 or 6 stayed on. And then we worked with them to identify their problem statements. So some problem statements were around, so Britam was one of them companies. That's how I also said I was able to prove pretty quickly a quick, fast model, right? So with them, they came in with, we'd be interested to create insurance products for the Gen Zs. And then we told them, but Gen Zs are into moments. So then it was, how can we create insurable moments? And I remember we explored everything from ticketing to travel to, when you order something and the good is in transit, that kind of delivery, because that's a moment, right? And we brought different innovators from those different spaces. And then we settled on travel. And then Bonfire Adventures came on board as well. And then we asked them, what happens when someone goes on a trip that's a good enough moment? What are the challenges that you face? And there was issues around medical health, and then issues around personal accident cover. So together with Britam and Bonfire and the Qhala team, we were able to walk through different innovation iterations to come up with this product where every trip you book on Bonfire Adventures is insured by Britam. Yes. And it comes with some kind of medical and personal accident cover mash. That's part of your package. So you go on your holiday stress-free. So if any incident or issue happens, then you're covered. So that was great in that sense. And yeah,
I think I heard something about that, and in terms of how cost effective it can be.
Yeah.
So could you give me an example of, let's say, if I want to book a trip. Yeah, a trip to Diani, maybe. I'm just channeling.
Yeah.
If I want to book a trip to
Diani is
Diani,
nice this
maybe.
time of the year.
And how much would insurance cost me? Because I know travel insurance technically is not that expensive. However,
Yeah.
there's always the issue about what exactly is being covered.
Yeah. So I don't know the exact costs, but I know what it means is normally you pay an extra fee on top of your. So, for example, if you booked a flight with Jumbo Jet or whoever, you'd have to pay an extra $20 or $10 or $3 or $5. I don't know the price on top of your ticket. But in this case, when you book a trip with Bonfire, whatever you paid for just booking that trip, the insurance is embedded inside it. Yes. So that was the difference. And so Bonfire was absorbing the cost of the insurance per person, but then it was because they're processing travels at scale, then the cost becomes how you say, a little bit smaller. Yeah. Yeah. But then the process that changed was normally when they would book a trip with you, they'd only collect a few information on your ID. So now we had to create like a custom form which had information that the insurer is interested in to access risk. And so now when you're booking your trip, you're filling like a combined form. And then once you click submit, your trip is booked, you make your payments, but your trip is coming enhanced with a cover. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this looks like a lot of a massive playing field. So how did you, as Anne Salim, get into this space?
Well, I studied business information technology in Strathmore. My bias has always just been to edtech applications and systems. So I have spent the last 10 plus years working with different innovation companies around the education and technology space. But I did spend at least 5 years with iHub Research in between 2012 and 2017. And so in that time, we were always looking at cutting edge research. So yes, my bias was on governance and technology. I dream of a day when the problems we have in Nyaya House will reduce in terms of creating more transparency.
Can Qhala take that off?
I don't know. For me, it was just we need more information transparency. And I was lucky that then we were working on some projects with the Huduma Center. When the Huduma Center was conceptualized, we're looking at how can innovations create increased transparency around that time. And we were publishing papers around that. Fast forward to my work with Qhala, Dr. Shiko said, okay, are you interested in exploring how corporates can work with startups? And I was like, wow. In my head, I was just seeing dollars for mergers and acquisitions. And I was like, wow, I've never done that before. I was looking at my track record. I was like, I've worked on many things, but I've not worked on mergers and acquisitions. Can I get there? What will it take to get there? And so specifically with my work in Qhala, that's been the driving motivation of what do we need to do to showcase a big success? What does success look like? Everybody has a different definition of innovation. Some people think you have to be really cutting edge, and sometimes it's just the simple things. And so how I've gotten there is just really looking at what can I do to innovate? How can I innovate with others? Can I play in the background? Because I like to play in the background and just create processes and steps. And then can we use these processes and steps iteratively? And will that help us identify new ways of doing things? And that's what innovation is to me. Yeah.
So how would you encourage maybe other young women or other young Kenyans to just take up innovation? What's the importance of it?
I like tech. I like to play with different tech. Right now, I'm exploring a lot of AI. I just say what interests you. This is the process I use for many of my friends. If someone says, I want to get into coding, I'm like, oh, that's great. What do you want to code? And then they say, I don't know. Then I say, okay, do you have anything you really like to do? So someone once said they like to read poems. Then I said, to get started in coding around poems would be you'd make a simple website or a simple application showcasing your favorite poem. And then they're like, what? I'm like, yeah. So let's think, what are the things you need to do? I'm like, oh, I need to pick a poem. I need to pick a platform that I want to build it for, maybe a mobile or a website, right? And then I need to decide how I want it to look. That's elements of design. And then I need to make it. And so I say, okay, let's get started. So that's how I encourage many people to get started. When someone has an innovative idea, I would say, okay, let's write it down. express it to me like you would to a 10-year-old. What are the outliers here? And then we write it down, and then we start thinking, and then we start building up on the ideas. I think in modern day world, they call that the business model canvas. but but for me, I'm just like, let's put the idea down on paper and then let's test. Yeah.
I think that brings me to two questions. One, what would you say is the potential of research and innovation in I mean in the level of growth that we're seeing in our digital space, and even in general life, the linkages that seem to be missing? What kind of potential would you say innovation has to bridge these gaps?
Wow. I hadn't thought of that one. So it took me a minute.
Okay.
I think the potential is huge. And I think it always changes depending on your perspective. So if I look at my country right now, Kenya, we're known already as very innovative outlying economy. And thanks to a lot from Ushahidi, M-Pesa, those kind of innovations that took place in 2010 area. So what is the potential? I think the potential depends on what we're trying to solve for. So in agriculture, which is a space I'm now taking an interest in, we're looking at 3 years down the road, if we're predicting famine and food security issues, what are the things we need to do now to protect us from that future? And we create a roadmap around that. So that's huge. We're looking at right now, there's a lot of innovations around lifting people out of poverty. And the one dimension everybody has taken is create a fintech, give people access to loans, help them save their money, which is great because then we're moving money from under the mattress into, the banks, quote unquote. But beyond that, what does lifting people out of poverty look like? It means creating more access to knowledge. That's why we see a lot of ed tech apps coming up. It means creating security around health, the things that can quickly drop someone into poverty. So now we're seeing a lot of people building health insurance kind of solutions where someone can protect for the future. In our country, we have a heavy fundraising culture where if any incident happens, and we're fundraising a lot. So potential for that is how can we preempt on that? With insurance, you're seeing they have now death cover, which lifts some of the costs for death. Some innovators are building platforms for helping you collect money easily.
Yeah.
But are we really solving the root problem of there's a planning problem ahead, right? We know these incidences will happen. So the potential for innovation for me is knowing that these things are coming. They're as inevitable as Thanos would say. What do we need to put into place, either technology, research, or otherwise, that can reduce the impact? A lot of the first world countries are already solving for that. And I feel like we're always playing catch up. So, and the place for research there is looking at what are our environment, what's the materials available in our environment, how can we use them to bridge that gap. At the same time, it's what's available from the West that is an idea that has already been tested that can shorten our learning curve. And how do we marry the two to build something that's relevant for Kenya, I guess, because Kenya is my scope right now, and then Africa at wide, and then the rest. Yeah.
Okay. So last question. In the same way, why is it important to link corporates with startups?
We need to stop fundraising from abroad. The money is here. I mean, the companies in Kenya are doing really well and have been doing really well for several years. And they have a wealth of data and a wealth of information. But then on the other hand, we have the agility of young people coming up with great ideas, changed perspectives of how to do traditional things. So most of the time we're always importing solutions from the East, like India, whatever. The solutions are here and the funders are here. So the corporate has the muscle and the agility and the speed. The corporate has the muscle and the brand and the distribution routes, right? And then the startup has the speed. So if we can leverage what we have very close here, I think there's a high potential for doing so much more.
And as Qhala, you can be the good midwife to bring that to life.
Yeah, we're always happy to be the midwife. And yeah, we're happy to customize the process and design it together with you as a corporate to make it happen.
Sounds good. So any parting shots?
Innovation is good. Depends on your perspective.
Say.
I say with confidence.
Yeah.
I think every time we think about innovation, we should just stop thinking about it as have to be unique and extremely fancy. I like to change it to put the challenge to you to think about innovation as what little subtle changes can I make in my everyday processes to improve it. And that could be on a product, a service, or a design, etc. And you'd be surprised at how innovative you are, even if you just reflect on subtle changes you've implemented in your day-to-day life to everyday processes. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
you
you
for your time.